America's Heartland is made possible by
They make up a small part of our population, but have a huge impact on our lives. They take business risks few others would tolerate, all on our behalf. They're American farmers who feed, fuel, and clothe the world. Monsanto would like to recognize them for all they do for the rest of us. Because ultimately, our success and everyone else's depends on theirs.
and by the American Farm Bureau Federation, the voice of agriculture.
I'm Rob Stewart. Coming up, we'll take you to inner city Philadelphia, where students from neighborhoods just like this are going to school to learn how to put food on your table.
I'm Yolanda Vazquez. Do you like shrimp? It's one of America's favorite seafoods. Well, we're heading for Maryland to meet some farmers hauling in a harvest of seafood. But the ocean has nothing to do with this story.
I'm Akiba Howard. Now, you often hear us talk about food for your table. Well, in these farm fields of eastern Nebraska, agricultural efforts are also used to feed the creative soul on this one-of-a-kind art farm. It's all coming up on America's Heartland.
You can see it in the eyes of every woman and man in America's heartland, living close to the land. There's a love for the country and a pride in the brand. In America's heartland, living close to the land.
I'm Rob Stewart in the heart of Philadelphia. We're taking you to a big city school right down the street where the focus is on farming. We're going to show you inner city kids who are shaping the future of agriculture.
Philadelphia, the birthplace of America, the city of brotherly love. But right in the middle of one of the largest cities in the country is a high school whose students have a heart for the heartland. You see, when these teens leave their classrooms and books, it's all about cowpens and brooms. That's daily life at W.B. Saul High School, a farm school, so to speak, with one of the largest FFA chapters in the country. Students spend half the day in class, and for the other half, it's all ag.
So Daryl, this is no joke. I mean, this is serious hard work.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty tough. We do this every day, so.
Every day?
Every day. We come out here, feed the cows, get the stalls cleaned and everything like that.
So you really are living life on the farm?
Basically, yeah.
At school?
At school.
How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel that I'm very privileged to go to the school because they give you a lot of opportunities that I wouldn't, if I went to another school like my local school, I wouldn't get.
Daryl Blakey is one of 550 inner city students who choose to spend their high school years learning about agriculture. This school has inspired his dreams.
Go to college and run cross country in college and then graduate and have a farm one day.
Have a farm?
Yeah.
Has this helped you want to have a farm?
Yeah, FFA and the school and the 4-H has helped me know my future and what I want.
Come on, walk on.
Nyasia Santiago is willing to spend 3 hours a day getting to and from school for the ag opportunities at Saul.
This school opened my eyes to what I want to do for the rest of my life. Before, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just had no clue, and then I came here, and it just opened my eyes to it, and I was like, that's what I'm going to do.
When these kids come to school today, you have a hard time getting them out of here at the end of the day. And it's quite an experience, you know, that they learn that their food just doesn't come from the supermarket. It comes from, you know, away from here.
This school is about all aspects of ag. Students learn about greenhouses, even landscape design, and a year-long course in food processing.
You remember we take that little fillet off here?
Life lessons are learned here in more ways than one. Today, the students are preparing a steer for an inner-city homeless shelter.
Remember what I said about protein and how hard it is for them to get protein?
The interesting thing about this whole program is to watch them grow from beginning to end. They first come back here and see a hind quarter or a chuck of beef. oh my gosh, and now it's, okay, now what are we going to make out of it? So it goes from, we love to do everything at Saul from farm to table.
Saul is stiff competition. More than 800 students apply each year, and less than 200 are accepted. And incoming freshmen must give up a chunk of their summer to prepare.
Kids today, all day long, have told me that this place has changed their life.
I think that they learn responsibility because it doesn't matter really which side they're on, whether it's the animal side or the horse side, they're responsible for caring for something, and they get to see the fruits of their labor.
For Principal Wendy Shapiro, the impact of agriculture is as life-changing as academics.
You know what? You take kids out of the inner city and you watch them come here. It's exciting, and I just think it just shows the world that kids in Philadelphia can do anything they put their minds to do. And I'm watching many of them be very successful.
For Nyasia,
I wouldn't want to go to any other high school than this.
and for Daryl, that success is learned from lessons of the land.
So has this school helped you fall in love with farming?
Yeah.
Really?
I can actually say that at the school, yeah.
That you fall in love with farming?
Fall in love with farming at the school, yeah.
Well, good for you.
Thank you.
There are more than 7,400 FFA chapters in the U.S., Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, both in rural and urban areas. And those blue jackets worn by FFA members made their national appearance in 1933, 5 years after the organization was founded.
Changing consumer tastes have opened new opportunities for producers in the U.S. Foods that are lower in fat and cholesterol, or foods that have simply become more popular with diners. Add shrimp to that list. And here in Maryland, those tiny crustaceans are part of a unique aquaculture operation. The small town of Hurlock, Maryland looks much more like a farming community than a seafood center. But open the doors on these nondescript warehouses and you quickly discover an indoor ocean tailored to harvesting seafood that's much in demand.
I just want to make sure that the level's good for these shrimp.
From an aquaculture perspective, there's been a lot of research and development over the last decade or so, helping to bring some of these more present-day innovations to shrimp aquaculture.
Scott Fritz and friends, Guy Furman and Andrew Hanslick started Marvesta Shrimp Farms in 2002. They had lots of enthusiasm but little experience with aquaculture.
This is probably the farthest thing from what I thought I'd ever be doing. I was a business major, and my track was to go to New York along with Scott.
Initially, I thought it was a crazy idea. Shrimp, I didn't know much about shrimp. We were off doing the financial world, New York, Wall Street. I didn't know anything about shrimp. I knew that I liked them and they tasted good.
If you could just get that to me.
A college research project showed the three partners that domestic production held a real opportunity.
We also import 90% of our shrimp here in the United States from overseas. Domestically, there's very little production.
Without a blueprint to follow, the three carved out an original business plan and began designing their shrimp farming operation.
But hold in the water in case we don't get the amount we need.
As with many farming operations, it was trial and error at first. Baby shrimp from Florida were placed in tanks that held 500,000 gallons of water. But getting the science correct was a challenge, and results were not always good. Smaller, shallow tanks proved more successful, and production increased.
We have about how many more bags?
From an environmental standpoint, what we could do on 5 acres takes the rest of the world almost 300 to 400 acres to do. So instead of having a 50,000 acre facility on the coast of South America, we could essentially develop a system that we could put in the middle of farm country and produce the same quality product.
Should we raise the water level a little bit?
Marvesta's indoor facilities allow shrimp to be harvested more often.
From the fact that they're hand harvested, the value that we provide, the creativity from the culinary standpoint with a fresh sashimi grade product is almost limitless.
The operation also allows their shrimp to be shipped very fresh.
We're able to get shrimp out of the water and to consumers within 4 hours of them actually coming out of the water. which is amazing. I mean, that can't be done anywhere else in the world.
We remain very close with our chefs.
Yeah,
you know, we can pull out any of our cell phones and on speed dial have some of the best chefs in America.
Marvesta's plans for the future include more tanks, increasing production tenfold, a farming expansion very different from their start.
From where we were at the beginning of this to where we are now, it's a long way, and the sense of accomplishment that you feel makes you feel real good.
Shrimp in the wild or farm raised come in different colors: brown, white, pink, even tiger striped. And there are a lot of them. Worldwide, you can find more than 300 species of the tasty crustacean.
Hi, I'm Jason Shoultz. Coming up, horses are making a comeback on some smaller farms in America's heartland.
I'm Akiba Howard. Still ahead, a Nebraska farm family uses its land for crops and creativity. We'll take you to the art farm.
Hi, I'm Paul Robbins, and here's something you may not have known about agriculture. When it comes to sweet and juicy fruits, peaches are the pick for a lot of people, and why not? They are great right off the tree, and you add them to desserts like a peach cobbler, man. And in some cultures, they're sweet and significant.
Peaches were first cultivated in ancient China more than 3,000 years ago. In some Asian cultures, peaches are symbols of immortality and unity. Traders brought them west to Persia, and they were such a rarity in Imperial Rome that individual peaches were selling for something like $5 each. The Spaniards brought them to the New World, and American colonists found that peaches were great for making brandy or used for feeding their hogs. By the way, the peaches you find at the supermarket are usually freestone peaches, which means the pit is easily removed. The other variety, clingstone, is used for canning purposes.
And let me clear up a little misconception. Some people think that nectarines are a cross between peaches and plums because nectarines have that smooth skin. Not so. Nectarines are a proud member of the peach family. Call it a peach without the fuzz.
As we've learned in sharing stories with you about American agriculture, farmers are adaptable. They change their production to meet the needs of their crops and their farms. And for some farmers in Oregon, that means taking an old school approach to working the land. When it comes time to get a crop in the field, most farmers can be found hitching up some mechanized machinery to begin their spring planting. But not everyone is turning to a tractor these days.
Watch your slack in that right line and just idle him down. Slower speed, remember, pump together.
But these farmers are taking the art of growing crops back to its roots, learning how to drive and plow with draft horses.
For me, that relationship with the animal, while you're getting real work done, just the combination it's kind of indescribable.
29-year-old Zoe Bradbury has a master's degree in food systems. She uses horses to work the land on her organic farming operation in Southwest Oregon.
I think one of the constant challenges that's every day is how I communicate with my horses and how I relate to them. And Doc's really instilled in me the need to be the boss, and to do so in a way that's really gentle and loving, but firm and effective.
A little more life. This hand looks tense. Loosen up and relax. Okay.
Doc is Montana veterinarian Doug Doc Hamill.
If you're tense, he'll be tense.
He doesn't claim to be a horse whisperer. Instead, he uses a method called gentle horsemanship, where people are taught to understand the horse's logic instead of trying to impose their own.
It's really an art, and we're working with a living animal with a brain and a personality. And so working horses is not for somebody that's not patient and not willing to take the time to work things out with that animal in a way that keeps everybody comfortable and happy and so forth. You've got to lighten up with your right line except when you need it.
Never a farmer himself, the 65-year-old vet learned his techniques from growers who were farming the land before the advent of tractors.
I was able to find old-timer mentors that were kind enough to take me under their wing and show me their skills and share their mastery of what is really an art with them.
The horse sense in this class comes from two Belgians named Tom and Jerry, along with a third draft horse named Hank. Together with farm owner Walt Bernard, Doc instructs the students on plowing a field in what might now be considered green technology.
Go just a little shorter rather than just a little longer, because we hardly ever end up getting them too tight. We often end up having them too loose.
Normally, the good doctor holds court near his home office in Montana, but the rising interest in small and sustainable produce farming in the Northwest has brought him to Oregon, where even non-farmers are taking his courses.
I'm going to get hurt a little bit to the right when I start up.
Growers Dan and Maya Gee believe the doctor's methods have both personal and societal benefits.
Because you need to think of an animal's needs as well as your needs, and then it's a connection with the land, and I feel it actually makes a full circle on a deeper level of joy.
And you can also use the manures for the from the manures from the animals. We're using our chicken manure, our pig manure, our horse manure for our fertilizers.
Zoe Bradbury agrees.
I love knowing that if push came to shove, I could grow food with my team of horses, and it's a solar-powered system. You know, it's amazingly renewable. They can regenerate themselves, and every time I clean out the barn, I know it's fertility for my field. So
Doc Hamill doesn't believe draft horses will replace tractors, but he sees these classes as an opportunity to deliver traditional, time-honored, and successful farming methods to future generations.
In the 1920s, there were some 26 million horses used in farm production in the United States. That quickly declined in the middle of the 20th century as tractors took over the field duties. That caused a change in crops as well. Since farmers no longer needed to plant oats for horse feed, millions of acres were converted to corn and soybeans.
Can you name one of the oldest plants cultivated by man? Well, grapes fall into that category, and what's on the grapes does as well. I'm talking about microscopic yeast. It's used in the fermentation process, and it's also in many of the products that you pull off the shelf at your grocery store. Why? Well, let's talk some culinary science. Baker's yeast, of course, is used to leaven bread and gives it that yummy, yeasty, fermented flavor. Yeast converts the sugars in the dough to carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide forms bubbles, which causes the dough to expand. Then the baking process sets the bubbles, giving the loaf its soft, spongy texture. Brewer's yeast is the product used to brew beer. As the beer ferments, the yeast digests the sugars, which then become alcohol. There's top fermenting and bottom fermenting brewer's yeast, each imparting a very distinct flavor to the beer. And you need yeast to make wine and distilled beverages, but you won't find those strains at the grocery store. You will find several yeast choices on the shelves at the grocery store, however. Fresh yeast cakes in the refrigerated section are popular among professional bakers, but have a short lifespan of about 10 days. And get this, there's 30 billion yeast cells in 1 gram of fresh yeast. Active dry yeast on the baking aisle has a much longer shelf life. The yeast cells are revived at home in water. And another form of yeast that is rising in popularity is instant. Add it directly to your dough and watch it grow. But one of the most recent uses for yeast is actually nutritional yeast. Yeast comes with a lot of proteins, and with amino acids, minerals, and complex B vitamins, nutritional yeast is actually a popular supplement. It has kind of a nutty Parmesan cheese flavor and comes in powder or flakes. Some people think it's just as good for Fido. They'll give it to their pet, put it in their kibble to battle pesky fleas, and get a shinier coat.
I'm Akiba Howard. You often hear us talk about food for your table. Well, in these farm fields of eastern Nebraska, agricultural efforts are also used to feed the creative soul on this one-of-a-kind art farm.
There are images and sounds we usually associate with life in the Heartland. But there are also images and sounds that make some places unique.
here's space, do what you want, and you don't have to worry about someone looking over your shoulder that you are doing this. You can experiment, and I encourage experimentation.
Welcome to the Art Farm. Created in 1993, this artistic enclave sits on half of Ed Dady's farm a couple hours west of Omaha. Ed's nephew works the production side of this land, growing corn and soybeans. And while that farm work goes on, visiting artists spend their time appreciating the rhythms of rural life.
That's sort of typical of the way artists work around here. It's like long periods of thought, you know, trying to go through the process. So it's a reason why I sort of like recommend they come for 2 months, because it takes 1 month to get through all the other stuff. Then they work.
On this late spring morning, a poet and 2 painters have immersed themselves in the farm's creative atmosphere.
On the website, Art Farm seemed like kind of strange and adventurous, like not like your average residency.
29-year-old Rebecca Johnson is an impressionist artist from Asheville, North Carolina. The Art Farm gives her a window on a world that's different from her usual environment.
There's something just strange and amazing about walking down a dirt road and just being able to see for miles and knowing that like you can walk and walk all day and you'll be on that same dirt road and it'll still pretty much look the same.
24-year-old Amy DePlacido traveled 1,600 miles from Middleton, Massachusetts. She found the pace of the farm fueled her passion for linear art.
I think it really slows you down here. I think that's really important to learn too, especially coming from the city and just knowing like, you know, that hustle and bustle, like it doesn't really matter.
The geography also inspired her artwork of straight lines.
And seeing those lines of cornfields and soybean, and you can see right down and everything's placed in a grid. So I'm very inspired by these man-made, like geographical lines on the landscape.
Sycamore. Lone mare under the arced limb. Here, a list of yellow things.
For poet Meredith Clark of Seattle, the Art Farm offered a new look at her view of writing.
I think it's been actually a real life-changing experience in a lot of ways. Learning an awful lot about the way that I work. You know, I think a lot of people make the mistake sometimes of coming to a residency and assuming that they're going to churn something out.
She also had to learn the process of printing her poetry, the old-fashioned way.
This has probably taken me about an hour and a half or 2 hours, and it's just 6 lines of type.
The Art Farm has welcomed artists from 10 different countries. Space is limited to fewer than 24 residencies a year, and in exchange for room and board, the artisans help work the farm. A current project is restoring old barns which see duty as studios and living quarters. On this day, an old bathtub became a spa of sorts.
It gets hot here during the day, so we're going to fill it up when we need to cool off. Jump in the tub, go back to our studio and work. We're already doing that with the hose occasionally, but this will be better.
The landscape has become a repository of artwork completed by previous residents. Carol and Bernard Smith say they make the pilgrimage from Indiana on a regular basis to see what's new.
I remember when Ed first started this, it was like, how is he going to get people to come here? But it just never stops. I mean, it just seems like every year he's got more and more and more, and it's wonderful.
Perhaps it's the liberation of open space. Perhaps it's the serenity to be found here. Ed and the artist will tell you, it's inspiration without encumbrance.
It's the experience that you can try something, you can experiment, not worry about failing.
And that's going to do it for us this time. Thanks for traveling the country with us on this edition of America's Heartland.
We're always pleased that you can join us. And remember, there's much more in America's Heartland at our website, including video on the stories from today's show. Just log on to americasheartland.org. We'll see you next time, right here in America's Heartland.
To order a copy of this broadcast, visit us online or call 1-888-814-3923. The cost is $14.95 plus shipping.
You can see it in the eyes of every woman and man in America's heartland, living close to the land. There's a love for the country and a pride in the brand in America's heartland, living close to the land.
America's Heartland is made possible by
They make up a small part of our population, but have a huge impact on our lives. They take business risks few others would tolerate, all on our behalf. They're American farmers who feed, fuel, and clothe the world. Monsanto would like to recognize them for all they do for the rest of us. Because ultimately, our success and everyone else's depends on theirs.
And by the American Farm Bureau Federation, the voice of agriculture.